What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. You all know the drill at this point is we're getting to that 100 episode mark, and I'm just having a blast with it. I just honestly was just thinking about it a little while ago. It's crazy that it's been just about 3 years almost to this date, maybe a little later, a little sooner, but 3 years have gone by and I've had over 100 episodes, and we have interviewed artists from all genres, from all over the world. And honestly, I will keep doing this until the day I die because I love meeting new artists and I love hearing new stories and hearing new music. And that's what drives me and that's what it's all about. And today I'm super excited to welcome a new artist to the show, like I always do. And today I have Elle Sera on the show. How are you today?
Hey, super good. Thank you so much for having me. It's just so cool that you do this.
No, of course. It always means a lot to me that artists just like to take time out of their day because I know how busy life can be sometimes with schedules and stuff like that and performing and just doing music and stuff and being in the studio. But I just appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here and talk about your story through music today.
Absolutely excited. Good to share. Just share.
Absolutely. So kind of really just diving into the first question, it's always the basic of basics, and it really just kind of sets up the whole interview. Is where did everything kind of start for you music wise? Because I know for some people, it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes and then they like start playing their first piano or guitar, and then it slowly goes on from there. But then I like to compare it to someone like myself who really only started the whole songwriting and producing aspect of things in the music industry 5 years ago, back in 2018. So that was not like I did not have a full career in music or anything. Like it just all of a sudden came in 2018, and then it's progressed from there, and the podcast came about. But kind of for you is you have all kinds of music out. Obviously, you've been doing stuff since 2013, releasing music, but where did singing and playing really start for you?
So it was almost at birth. I probably was about 4 or 5, and I started going to some dance classes. I saw a production of Alice in Wonderland, a small community production, and stood up at the end and told my parents, I want to do that. I want to do that. So they took me to the dance academy and that put the production on. And I started there. The woman who ran it took me to a manager in New York, signed me, and then I started doing all kinds of child actor stuff. So then when I went to NYU for musical theater, by the time I was finishing, I think I had had my fill and didn't really know what else I could explore with that avenue. So I picked up a guitar, taught myself what I was doing with it and songwriting. And then I just leaned into that. So,
Yeah, no, and it's always cool because like you can sit there and listen to an artist, whether they're mainstream or whether they're up and coming or they're just kind of in the middle doing their own thing. And it's just you can sit there and listen to a song and be like, "Oh wow, they're really cool. Like that's a great artist and stuff like that." But to me, it's always fascinating like where they picked up their first guitar, where they started singing their first notes. Like I just love hearing stories like that. So it's always cool to kind of start with that question and really just build off of that to get into the rest of the interview.
hmm child actor over here, everybody.
No, I mean, hey, that's more accomplished than I've been. So I mean, that's honestly super cool. But obviously getting into the second question here is talking about inspirations. And I always tell people is I could sit here for hours and just make my own podcast about inspirations alone. Like I could probably have over 800 episodes just on people that have inspired me, whether they're in music, whether they're like actors or actresses, stuff like that, or just people in my everyday life that inspire me too. But I always have to shout out because I'm hoping maybe one day that he'll see this. But Chris Daughtry, all-time favorite artist. Hopefully one of these days he'll see that he inspires me, and like he just really I don't even remember the first time I heard him, and honestly it's cliche, but like Home was one of the first songs I ever heard from him, and then it just kind of really developed from there. But I love him as an artist. I love him as a songwriter, and then like Garth Brooks too. I always just have to mention him too because maybe one day he'll see this too. But for you is who are some inspirations that when you kind of get into music and when you're kind of looking for that inspiration aspect of things when it comes to writing and singing, who do you really look up to?
Well, it's change, and I actually was thinking about this today because of this interview. And if I go to my beginnings with music, it was primarily what was in the house, what my parents were
Yeah.
playing. So I was listening to Linda Ronstadt and Patsy Cline and Olivia Newton-John and Barbara Streisand and some really the Everly Brothers, some interesting choices of music. And as I progressed, and then I got into listening to pop music as a teen and whatnot, and then furthering when I got into songwriting, I was looking up to people who were great songwriters too, like a Patty Griffin or a Sheryl Crow, coupled with the vibe of someone like a Bonnie Raitt. And really now I don't pick my inspiration from musical artists
Yeah.
anymore. I'm picking it from my life. So the things that inspire me are my relationships or the world or my ever-changing ideas about spirituality and real life. So it's more topics now rather than artists.
Right. No, and that's awesome because honestly, like I feel like sometimes when I have artists on for interviews, like they just give the simple and safe answers. And like when I ask that question, I say, who are your inspirations? And instantly, like it is just kind of a generic thing to just like list artists that you kind of listen to and help you with. But when you say stuff like that, that like real world stuff that's in your life, like that inspires you every day and like that helps you sometimes, like and not just artists. Like that's kind of the answers that I love hearing because it's cool and creative and you don't hear that all the time. It's not like people just sit there and say, "Oh, like I love like Taylor Swift and like Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, like all kinds of different people like that." But then you sit there and say, "No, it's like the relationships in my life. It's the things that are going on in the universe that like really inspire me." So it's cool that you give that answer because
Well,
it's
we pick up a guitar or hit the keyboard to write. It's experiences. It's what's
yeah.
going on in my head and my heart. It's not hearing a favorite song and then needing to whatever jump off of that more often than not. Every now and then it is good to have a movie or a book or a saying or something that triggers something. But yeah,
No,
big
and that's what's really cool about the whole thing. And honestly, just from artists that you've named, artists that I've named, and honestly, just the songwriting process in general is I love telling a good story when it comes to writing music. And I've been writing for almost 5 years now, and that's really just what it comes from is the experiences and everything like that. And I had Brick Walker on the show long time ago, and I always have to quote what he said when I asked this question because the creative process is like a puzzle. Whether you
mm,
have that 100 piece, 200 piece, 1,000 piece that some people do, which is crazy to me, but you have all these pieces kind of scattered on the table trying to figure out what fits where. And eventually you start putting the border together, you start putting the middle together, and piece by piece, you figure out where everything fits and how everything's going to look at the end. And then by the end, you have this whole masterpiece. You say, hey, like, look what I just created. Like, this is what
mm.
I just did. It took me 4 hours. It took me a month, 3 weeks, like, whatever. And that's really what's cool because there is no rhyme or reason, probably as you know as an artist, as I know as an artist, there's no rhyme or reason how to songwrite. Like there's no book, there's no songwriting for dummies book and
Thank
just saying
goodness.
like no,
Leave the
exactly.
creative lane wide open, really.
Exactly. So there really is never a like generic answer for this, but for you, you have, like I said, you have so much music out, and I've been jamming all day and like for the past few days getting ready for
Hey.
this. But what is your creative process like when it comes to creating music?
Uh, a few things now. I've started listening to myself in the, what is it, theta delta state, right when you wake up or you go to sleep. And I do like to nap, not to the point of falling asleep, but getting in that state. So every now and then I'll have some voice memos or lyric ideas that I'm putting down through that as well. That happens when I'm on walks, whenever I go into meditative sort of state. Otherwise, it's picking up a guitar and just like I always have, press strings, see where it goes, have an idea. What is it I want to say? What idea goes with this? And then just opening up the floodgates and
Yeah.
writing down as it's channeled or something.
No, absolutely. And honestly, one of my favorite two words that artists always say is voice memos. Like, I honestly can't live without a voice memo. Like, it doesn't matter if it's 1 in the afternoon or 1 in the morning. Like, you have those voice memos. And if you don't, as an artist, like, I kind of question sometimes, what are you actually doing if you don't have voice memos?
Slips of paper, maybe just a lot of little slips of paper to write it down.
I mean, if you keep a notebook and
I
pencil
guess.
by your bed, I mean, like, I
I
get
do.
it.
I've got two here.
Oh, okay,
I
you
have like
do.
three in the bedroom. They're all over the house.
All right, so you
Again,
are like
multiple ways. Multiple
you are
ways.
prepared like no matter when it comes to you. You either got your phone or you got the notepad and pencil, and I am here for that. Honestly, I love that.
Wealth of stuff going on up in the head and in the heart and probably in the solar plexus. And so, yeah, I'm always looking for an escape for all of that.
Yeah, and obviously when it comes to releasing music and playing your own originals and sharing them with other people like your fans and just new people to kind of gain a bigger fan base is it's hard sometimes, especially on social medias like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, like whatever. It's hard to really get your name out there sometimes because there's hundreds and thousands of artists out there doing the same thing that you're doing. And I tell people all the time is you go to hit that I can't even think right now, but you go to hit that post button. Post is the word I was just trying to think of on like Instagram and Facebook and stuff. But at the same time, when you're hitting that post button, there's 100,000 other artists hitting that post button at the same time saying, like, here's my new single, like, come check it out. So it's hard sometimes. And like, I always hate to compare it to a competition because it's not a competition. We're all here to just be able to share our music, share our stories, and do all
Mhm.
that. But for you, this is always the hardest question that I do ask, and it's the fourth question here, is what makes you different compared to other artists, and just what can we kind of take away from your music that we're not going to find in other artists' music?
Is it, well, the thing that I haven't found with other musicians is the versatility. I know that the way that I steer my ship, and we had a couple moments of conversation about this. I'm skipping genres. I'm skipping around and I'm mixing and blending things, always changing. Always, I try to be two steps ahead of myself with that. Return to something later. So if you're looking at my catalog, and then there's even stuff I was writing music and performing music before 2013, the album that you were talking about, which is all Americana and folk country, and also really different from the majority of what I have out now. So I think it's genre skipping around, and yeah, I try to put all of my heart into my music
Yeah,
and
and
my
on
emotions and engaging with people, and yeah.
right. And honestly, you took the one word that I was going to say after you were done talking is versatility.
Yeah.
Because listening to all your stuff, you have that Americana folk vibe, you have that country in your voice, you have that pop, and then you also what I really find cool is you have like that edgy rockiness to your vocals
And
as
it's all
well. And
singer-songwriter. Like that's the umbrella. And
yeah,
yet,
and everything's just coming down, and like that's what's really cool about your style, and that's what I love about what you're doing in the music industry because you have such a great catalog of music and you're so versatile. You could release a country EP tomorrow, you could release a rock and roll EP next month, and like it's
or
so
blues
awesome
rock,
because
yeah.
you don't hear artists do that all the time, and like it's such I feel like I don't know the right word for it, but like artists are just sometimes scared to do stuff like that and step out of their comfort zone. Like you have a pop artist and they're like, "No, I just do pop. Like that's all I do. I can't do anything else." And it's like, "No, like you have those vocals that you can take to another level and try these other things." And like we were saying kind of before we hopped on to the actual recording for the interview is I tell people all the time, there's 4 lanes on the highway for a reason. Like you can merge and do whatever you want. Yeah, you can stay in that one lane the whole trip, wherever you're going, but you have the opportunity to switch lanes and do what you want to do, and you have the freedom to go where you want to go.
Exactly. And that's what I do.
No, exactly. And honestly, that's what you need to keep doing. And that kind of is going to lead into this last question here is talking about your future and what else we can kind of expect from you. But what are some of your short I can't speak now, losing my voice here, but what are some of your short-term and long-term goals, and just what else can we expect down the road from you?
So I'm working on, I will soon be releasing an EP of cover songs that my audiences have, it's some of their favorites and some of my favorites of the cover songs that I do, and they are not traditional the way the songs were written. So there's that. They're acoustically stripped down. Then I am going to be heading into the pop world. So I'm playing with that. That's been a long dream of mine to really get a great foothold on that genre. So I have a couple singles that'll be releasing and maybe another album following that up. Long term, I just want to reach more people. I want to get back into touring now that everything's so open again, and yeah, just get in my car and go and reach more people.
No, and that's awesome. I always love when artists say they want to get back to touring, and that's what they want to do. They want to go travel and play shows everywhere. And that's when I say is like, hey, I'm up in Boston, so like come here
Yes,
whenever. Like we're
I will
ready
let
for
you
you.
know.
And no, I always tell people it's like if you're ever up here in Boston performing a show, like I will be the first one buying tickets, like front row, like getting ready for the show because you are just such a talented artist. You have such a great catalog of music, and like we said before, you're just so versatile, and I can't wait to see what else happens for you.
Thanks, Casey.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes all the questions that I have for you today, and it kind of gets to the good part of the interview is hearing something from you, which is one of your songs that we're going to take a little listen to.
Okay.
But before we take a listen to it, if you want to just give us a little background on how this song, kind of like this one song in particular that we're listening to, which is Little Fire, how did this one kind of come about, and just what is the whole story behind this?
So we talked about voice memos. I started writing this one so many years ago, and I just had the voice memo of the chords, the song and the way I sing a melody. It's not words that make any sense together. It's just things, maybe they find a rhyme or something. Anyway, I loved the feel and the song, and finally sat down and said, I need to write this song. It needs to be an EP. This is what I'm going to jump off of. So I just sat down with it and wrote it. So it was years in the making, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And yeah, Little Fire.
No, that is like those. I love stories like that. Like I always just love hearing how the songs actually come together because I said before this interview started, and I'll say it again, listening to this one song because we were talking about which song we were going to play at the end today, and I was like, how did I not find this song sooner? Because it's now like a top 10, honestly, if not top five for me, like listening to, and it's honestly one of my favorite songs to listen to now.
So glad you're enjoying it. I'm going to go back and listen to it as well.
No, absolutely. So obviously, kind of without further ado, we're gonna take a little listen to Little Fire. And obviously, as you guys know, I will only play about a minute, minute and a half of it because I want you guys to go stream it because it is out on all streaming platforms wherever you can find music. So, kind of without further ado, here is Little Fire.
Turn around and take this story like a chainsaw through the bone. Tell me how do I come back for more? Try to get my mind off the damage, but I hear the room spinning out of control. So tell me why is it taking so long? Riding out the storm with a fury, waiting at the horizon's edge. Just a little fire in my head. Harder.
So that's a little sneak peek of Little Fire. And I mean, honestly, like I tell people, Kelly and Kat, they were two sisters that I had on the show, and they did a performance. And like it was from that moment forward that I said it's either chills or go home when I listen to music on here. And like I was just like,
That's fab.
your vocals just like for that song in particular, like just the melody behind it and everything like suits your vocals so well, and like just I got chill. I mean, you can't, no one can see it, but I got chills right now. And like, I love that song. It's gonna be a top 10, if not top 5 for me for a long time.
I'm so happy to hear that.
So again, thank you so much for being on the show today. And
Yeah.
it always means so much to me to have artists on the show and just for them to take time out of their day. But kind of before I do my little outro here and stuff, is where can people go find you on social medias?
We can start with Instagram, Elle Sera Music. You can also find me on Facebook, which I know is not the first place people think of, but it is still quite active for me. So same thing, Elle Sera Music, or just my name, Elle Sera on there. You can, I have a SoundCloud page that I hardly use. I have a YouTube page that'll get a little love soon. That's, I think that's also Elle Sera Music. If not, it's Lil Miss Songstress. Um, and then go on the streaming platforms, Amazon, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, all the places. Put me in your playlist, give me a shout, and I will give you a shout back. So that's basically how that works. And my
Awesome.
website, which you can connect with me directly, again, on a mailing list that I'm not obnoxious about. And we'll keep in touch that way too.
No, that is perfect. I mean, you guys definitely have to go check her out and definitely go listen to Little Fire because it's easily one of my favorite songs now. And again, thank you so much, Elle Sera, for being on the show today and just taking time to talk about your story through music.
You too, AC. Thank you.
Of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got new music, new artists, new stories. Never know who's going to pop through. Never know what you're going to hear on here. So y'all stay tuned for next week and thanks for tuning in today.